The wind howled across the barren landscape, sending waves of dust and sand swirling through the air. The ground was cracked and parched, with no signs of life except for the occasional shadow cast by the distant, hostile creatures lurking in the wasteland. This planet, once teeming with life, now lay in ruin, abandoned by its alien inhabitants. But something stirred within the desolation. A lone creature, barely holding on to life, staggered through the unforgiving terrain. Its body was torn and bloodied from the harsh conditions, but it had no choice. Survival was the only instinct it knew. The creature's movements were slow, each step more painful than the last. Its limbs trembled from exhaustion, and its breath came in shallow gasps as it stumbled across jagged rocks, trying to find shelter from the planet's blistering winds. This alien, an outcast of its kind, had been left to die on this hostile world, forgotten by the very race it once called home. Its species was advanced, capable of incredible feats of technology and power, but this creature, an individual, was seen as weak, unable to keep up with the demands of its own people. So it had been abandoned, cast aside to perish alone. Yet survival instinct had driven it forward, through pain, through desperation, seeking anything that could offer a glimmer of hope. But there was no help. No one would save it, not from the deadly predators that stalked the land, nor from the harsh conditions that would destroy even the strongest of beings. Or so it seemed. The creature's steps faltered as the distant sound of approaching footsteps caught its attention. It froze, its senses heightened. Who could it be? There was no one out here, no one but the creatures of the planet. It turned, trying to locate the source of the sound, but the winds picked up again, drowning out everything. The steps were faint, but they were there, definitely there. The creature's heart raced, and it instinctively crouched low, preparing to defend itself. Yet no attack came. Instead, a strange presence filled the air, almost as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The creature's senses flared with confusion. Was it an alien predator, or something more dangerous? From the shadows of a nearby rocky outcrop, a cloaked figure appeared. The figure was tall, nearly a silhouette against the harsh sunlight, its features obscured by a hooded cloak. The creature's instincts screamed for it to flee, but its body was too weak to move. It had no choice but to watch as the figure slowly approached. As the human figure came closer, the creature's eyes widened. It could sense the difference. The technology, the power. This wasn't an ordinary being. The human, shrouded in the advanced cloak that bent light around it, blended into the background, almost invisible. The creature could hear the faint hum of technology, the whirring of machinery that seemed too advanced to belong to a mere traveler. The human paused for a moment, scanning the environment, then slowly kneeled. The creature's senses were on edge, but it was too weak to react. Its head drooped, the weight of the world too much to bear. Every breath felt like a struggle. The human took one step forward, and then another. The creature felt the ground beneath it tremble slightly, the heavy boots of the human soldier making contact with the dirt. Each step was deliberate, careful. The air was tense, and the winds howled even louder, as if nature itself was watching. But still, the creature could do nothing. It had no strength left to fight or flee. And then, in the blink of an eye, the human figure dropped its hood, revealing a face, strong, focused, and determined. His eyes locked with the creature's for a brief, intense moment. The creature's heart pounded in its chest, and it instinctively backed away, its legs shaking beneath it. But the human was not hostile. No, there was something else in his gaze, something unexpected. Compassion. Without a word, the human reached into his pouch and pulled out a sleek, silver device. The creature flinched at first, afraid of the unknown, but it couldn't move. The device glowed faintly with a soft blue light, and the human pressed it to the creature's side. The alien creature let out a low, painful groan as a strange warmth radiated from the device. Pain washed away, replaced with a soothing sensation. The creature's wounds began to heal before its very eyes, the deep gashes on its sides slowly closing, the bruises fading, and the exhaustion lifting. The human's voice broke the silence, though his words were alien to the creature. Yet the tone was gentle, almost comforting. The creature couldn't understand, but the warmth of the human's presence was undeniable. It could feel the energy coming from the device, a powerful healing tool that restored its strength bit by bit. The creature's eyes widened, its confusion growing. It wasn't supposed to survive this. This planet was supposed to be its grave. No one cared, no one would help. Yet here was a human, a creature from a species considered inferior by the rest of the galaxy, saving it. For the first time, the creature felt a strange, unexplainable feeling. Trust. It was fleeting, fragile, but it was there. As the human continued to administer the healing device, the creature's body began to stabilize. It slowly stood up, its legs still weak but far stronger than they had been moments before. It could feel its energy returning, the warmth from the device radiating through its body. And yet, it couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of disbelief. How had this human found it? Why had the human helped it? The creature had no answers. All it knew was that for the first time since it had been abandoned, it felt like it might survive. The human stepped back, watching the creature with a mix of curiosity and caution. The creature, now standing, slowly took a step forward, still wary but drawn to this strange, compassionate being before it. The human's weapon was visible now, but the creature felt no immediate threat. This was no attack. This was no fight. It was an encounter. The human didn't speak again. He simply watched as the creature adjusted to its newfound strength. The creature could feel the tension between them, the fragile bond that had been forged in this moment of crisis. The human wasn't like the others. He wasn't cruel. He didn't abandon it. In a world where abandonment had been its only reality, this human was an anomaly. But that bond was still fragile. The creature wasn't ready to trust fully. Not yet. After all, it had been abandoned by its own kind. Could it truly trust this human? Or was this just a momentary illusion? But as the creature took another step closer, the human extended his hand, not in a gesture of aggression, but one of understanding. The creature hesitated, the storm in its mind battling with the new sensation of hope that had taken root. Then, after a long pause, the creature did something it hadn't done in a long time. It stepped forward, cautiously, but with intent. And in that moment, it wasn't just surviving anymore. It was choosing something else, something different. The human smiled slightly, though it was barely visible behind his mask. But in that smile was a promise that this creature wouldn't be left to die alone. And thus began a new chapter of survival, not just for the creature, but for both the human and the alien. They were no longer enemies or strangers. They were allies in a harsh world, bound by a single, fragile moment of trust. The desolate landscape stretched endlessly before them, an inhospitable world of jagged rocks and barren plains. The harsh winds howled through the canyon-like ravines, carrying the stench of decay and dust. The sky above was a dull gray, with occasional flashes of distant lightning, illuminating the jagged mountains in the distance. The alien world, once vibrant with life, was now a cold, desolate wasteland. The human soldier, tall and imposing in his advanced armor, had crash-landed here after a disastrous mission. His ship, severely damaged by enemy fire, had plummeted from the sky, its wreckage scattered across the rocky expanse. He had no way of contacting his unit, no way of calling for help. The communication systems in his suit were damaged, and the AI drones he relied on for survival had been damaged in the crash. He was alone. At least, he had been. Now, the soldier was not alone. The creature, the alien he had saved, had followed him without question. It was as though some unspoken bond had formed between them, a bond rooted in shared survival and an unexpected moment of trust. The creature, still weak from its earlier wounds, moved with caution, its eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. The soldier had no idea what to make of it yet. It was an alien, a being from another world. But in the chaos of the crash, he hadn't been in a position to question anything. The soldier's focus remained on survival. His helmet's visor displayed a map of the terrain, highlighting potential threats and possible shelters. His AI assistant, a robotic drone that hovered nearby, provided real-time data, analyzing the environment for signs of danger. The soldier had no illusions about the planet's danger. The creatures on this world were aggressive, and the conditions were unforgiving. But he had survived before, and this planet would not be the end of him. For now, his only concern was finding shelter. The wind was picking up again, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. The creature seemed to sense the danger, its alien instincts kicking in. It followed the human, staying close but keeping a wary distance. It seemed to trust him, but only just. It was still an unknown variable in this strange new world. The soldier didn't have time for explanations. He needed to survive. But as they moved deeper into the ravine, something unexpected happened. The creature's gaze was drawn to his robotic assistant, the AI drone that hovered above them. It was small, sleek, and glowing with a soft blue light. It had been hovering silently, scanning the surroundings, when the creature suddenly reached out a trembling hand, its long fingers brushing the drone's metallic surface. The soldier stopped, watching with a mixture of curiosity and caution. The creature seemed fascinated by the drone, its eyes wide with a strange kind of wonder. The drone, responding to the creature's touch, emitted a series of soft beeps, and the creature let out a soft, almost inquisitive noise. It was unlike anything the soldier had ever seen. The creature had barely spoken since he saved it, and yet here it was, communicating in a way that was beyond just instinct. Without thinking, the soldier activated the drone's communication system, which displayed a series of symbols on his helmet's visor. The drone chirped again, its mechanical voice translating the simple message. "Does the creature understand?" The soldier murmured to himself, though the words were more rhetorical than anything. He didn't expect an answer. To his surprise, the creature didn't flinch. Instead, it seemed to study the symbols, its eyes narrowing as it focused on the flashing lights. Slowly, cautiously, it reached out again, this time pressing its hand against the drone's surface. The drone responded by displaying more symbols, and the creature followed along. It was as if it was learning, adapting to the technology in a way the soldier didn't expect. A spark of realization flashed through his mind. This creature, once thought to be a mere animal, was not as primitive as it seemed. There was intelligence here, intelligence far beyond what he had originally thought. It was adapting to his technology at an alarming rate. The soldier couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Maybe this creature wasn't just a burden after all. Maybe it could help him survive. As they continued their journey, the soldier taught the creature what he could. He showed it how to use basic survival tools, how to harness the energy of the planet's scarce resources, how to navigate the treacherous terrain, and how to avoid the predators that stalked them from the shadows. The creature, once an outcast, now displayed incredible learning ability, picking up the soldier's teachings with remarkable speed. It wasn't just mimicking his actions, it was understanding. By the time they reached a sheltered cave in the mountains, the creature had become more than just an ally. It had become a partner. Together, they set up camp, the soldiers' cloaking technology masking their presence from any potential threats. The cave, a natural formation in the rock, provided some respite from the relentless storm outside. The soldier quickly set up his equipment, deploying energy shields and monitoring devices, while the creature watched, seemingly fascinated by everything the human did. But their moment of peace was short-lived. As night fell, the sounds of the wilderness grew louder, the low growls and roars of distant creatures echoing through the cave. The soldier's sensors detected movement outside, and he immediately raised his weapon, scanning the surroundings. The creature, instinctively, dropped into a crouch, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. It was no longer the weak, abandoned being it had been. It was becoming a warrior in its own right. Suddenly, the shadows outside shifted, and a pack of ferocious alien beasts appeared on the horizon. Their glowing eyes gleamed in the darkness, their bodies massive and muscular, built for hunting. The soldier's heart raced. He had faced these creatures before, and he knew how deadly they could be. But now he wasn't alone. The creature stepped forward, its posture shifting as it seemed to ready itself for the fight. The soldier's weapon hummed to life, a high-tech energy rifle that crackled with power. He glanced at the creature, who, surprisingly, wasn't afraid. It was determined. Without warning, the beasts lunged, their claws extended, their teeth bared. The soldier fired first, his shot striking the nearest creature and sending it reeling backward. But the pack was relentless. They charged, their roars deafening as they closed the distance. The soldier's energy shield activated just in time, the protective barrier deflecting the blows from the creatures. But the shield was weakening, and he knew it wouldn't hold for long. That's when the creature acted. With a sudden, fluid motion, the alien leaped into action, its claws slashing through the air as it tackled one of the beasts. The soldier watched in awe as the creature fought with an intensity and skill that he hadn't anticipated. It was using the survival instincts the soldier had taught it, but it was also improvising, adapting, and learning faster than he could keep up. Together, they fought back to back, their movements synchronized, as if they had been working together for years. The soldier's rifle fired in rapid succession, each shot taking down a beast, while the creature used its claws and agility to evade and strike with deadly precision. The fight was brutal and fast-paced, the air filled with the sounds of battle. The soldier's heart pounded in his chest as the creatures kept coming, but he no longer felt alone. The creature was by his side, and together, they were a force to be reckoned with. In the end, the beasts were defeated, their bodies littering the ground outside the cave. The soldier and the creature, both panting heavily from the exertion, stood victorious. It was a moment of triumph, but also of realization. They had formed something stronger than an alliance. They had formed a partnership. The soldier looked at the creature, a hint of respect in his eyes. This fragile bond, forged in the heat of battle, was stronger than anything he could have imagined. The creature had trusted him, and in return, he had taught it how to survive. But what came next was uncertain. This was only the beginning of their journey. The quiet of the cave was shattered by the low hum of the soldier's cloaking device. Outside, the wind howled, whipping the dust and debris of the barren planet through the air. Inside, the soldier sat, his helmet scanning the screens before him. The creature, now somewhat more relaxed in its temporary home, stood a few feet away, its eyes constantly flicking toward the entrance of the cave, as though sensing something was wrong. The soldier's hand hovered over the control panel of his suit, his eyes narrowed in concentration. He had known something was off when the skies above had darkened. His sensors, still operating at minimal capacity after the crash, had begun picking up strange readings. The low hum of the distant planet's atmosphere had shifted, replaced by a much more ominous sound. That's when it happened. His visor flickered, the warning lights flashing. A fleet of ships had just appeared, unbidden, on his radar. He squinted at the screen, his breath catching in his throat. These weren't ordinary ships. The sleek, dark hulls were lined with high-tech armor, and their movements were precise. Too precise for the usual space pirates he had encountered before. They were organized, methodical, and deadly. These were mercenaries, equipped with the best cloaking technology and advanced eye-controlled war machines. Worse still, they were not here by accident. The creature, sensing his sudden alarm, turned toward the soldier. It stood frozen, its eyes wide with something between confusion and fear. The soldier stood up quickly, his heart racing. He had no time to explain, no time for anything other than to act. He quickly patched into his helmet's communication system, broadcasting a signal to his AI drones. "Stay on alert," he muttered, voice low. "Something's coming." The creature, still watching him intently, seemed to understand. It had grown used to the soldier's behavior in such moments. The soldier had taught it to be alert, to respond to danger. But this was different. He could feel it in the air. The tension was rising, thick and palpable. As the ships entered the planet's atmosphere, the soldier activated his suit's cloaking device once again, but something was different this time. The normally smooth hum of the cloaking text seemed to struggle, a faint distortion in the air. The mercenary ships had sophisticated detection systems, and the soldier knew they would be looking for any trace of his presence. The creature looked to him, its eyes searching his face for answers. It had come to trust him, but now, with the threat of these mercenaries, that trust would be tested. The soldier knew he had to keep them both hidden, at least until he could figure out what the mercenaries wanted. The first ship dropped down from the sky, its massive hull gleaming under the dim light of the planet. It was followed by another, and then another, until a fleet of 5 alien ships had appeared in orbit. Their movements were swift and precise, and the soldier knew they were methodical. This wasn't just an attack. It was a calculated operation. The soldier's heart raced as the fleet settled into position above the planet. His visor displayed the data on the ships. All had cloaking capabilities, and all were equipped with powerful AI that could easily detect him if he wasn't careful. But the stakes were much higher than simply avoiding detection. These ships weren't here to kill him. They were here for the creature. Why? The soldier muttered under his breath, his mind racing. The creature had to be important. But why? It was an abandoned animal, a species far from Earth. Was it some kind of biological weapon? No. The soldier had seen enough advanced technology in his career to recognize that what mattered wasn't the creature's biology. It was the creature's history. As if reading his mind, the creature took a step closer to him. It stood tall now, its eyes locking onto his. The bond between them was stronger than it had ever been. The soldier could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He wasn't just protecting a creature anymore. He was protecting a being from a long-forgotten, advanced alien race. This was no ordinary creature. It had knowledge, secrets, and technology beyond anything the soldier had ever encountered. Suddenly, the loud crackle of static filled his helmet as a transmission came through. It was an encrypted message, one that his AI assistant scrambled to decode. "This is the commander of the mercenary fleet," the voice crackled. "We are here for the creature. You will surrender it to us immediately, or you will face the consequences." The soldier clenched his fists. The message was clear. These mercenaries believed the creature held the key to something far more valuable than a mere weapon. They were after the creature's advanced technology, something that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. The soldier had no idea what this technology was, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let them have it. The soldier glanced at the creature, now standing beside him. Its eyes were wide with understanding, as though it knew its fate was tied to the soldier's decisions. The bond between them was deeper than ever, and he knew he couldn't let it go. "We're not running this time," the soldier muttered under his breath, his voice low. He knew what needed to be done. As if in response, the creature stepped forward, standing by his side with an air of determination. The soldier activated his AI drones, sending them into position. The battle was about to begin. Outside, the mercenary ships began their descent, cloaking devices flickering and fading as they prepared to land. The soldier's helmet buzzed with activity as his suit analyzed the incoming threat. Orbital bombardments had already begun, a rain of laser fire hitting the surface of the planet, targeting the soldier's hideout. The cave trembled, rocks shifting and crumbling from the impact. The soldier's cloak struggled to maintain its effectiveness under the mercenaries' advanced detection systems. "Hold on," the soldier said, his voice calm but firm. "It's not over yet." The creature stood still, eyes flashing with an unexpected intensity. It had learned from him, just as he had learned from it. It knew how to fight. It knew what was at stake. The first wave of mercenary forces descended from the ships, their armored forms towering over the landscape. They were fast, efficient, and deadly. Their eye-controlled war machines, sleek and menacing, scanned the area for any signs of life. The soldier knew he had to act quickly. He couldn't afford to be detected. With a few quick commands, the soldier sent his AI drones to engage the mercenaries. A series of flashing lights filled the air as the drones fired, their weapons crackling with energy. But the mercenaries were ready. They retaliated with pinpoint precision, their weapons tearing through the landscape as they closed in on the soldier's position. The creature stood by, watching as the soldier prepared for the inevitable fight. The soldier activated his energy shields, his weapon ready. He had no choice now. He would either fight and survive, or he would die protecting this mysterious creature. The stakes were higher than ever. The soldier's heart raced as he prepared for the worst. But he knew one thing for sure. The fight had just begun, and he wouldn't go down without a fight. The enemy was here, and they weren't going to stop until they had what they came for. The wind howled through the ruined city as the soldier's boots hit the cracked pavement. Behind him, the creature stumbled slightly, its once graceful movements now hindered by the injury it had sustained earlier. The chase was on, and the stakes had never been higher. They had to escape, or they would never make it out alive. The mercenaries were closing in. The soldier could hear their footsteps, the mechanical clank of their armor echoing off the dilapidated structures of the city. Their cloaking devices had failed, and now they were visible, moving in formation as they hunted him and the creature down. The soldier's breath came in quick gasps, but his mind was clear. He had a plan, but it had to work. There was no second chance. "Stay close," the soldier whispered, his voice barely audible above the chaos. The creature, though wounded, nodded. There was no time for hesitation. They had to move, and they had to move fast. The soldier turned a corner sharply, ducking behind the remnants of a crumbling building. He had learned long ago that speed and strategy were his best friends when it came to staying alive. He activated his cloaking device, disappearing from view just as the mercenaries rounded the corner. He moved swiftly, staying low and silent, but not entirely hidden. His AI drones, on the other hand, hovered above him, blending into the surroundings with their own cloaking technology. For a brief moment, the soldier felt a flicker of hope. He was out of sight, and the mercenaries seemed to have lost his trail. But just as quickly as the hope emerged, it was extinguished by a blinding flash of light. The mercenaries had activated their scanners. They had found him. The soldier's heart raced, but he didn't panic. Instead, he relied on his training. He knew he had to outsmart them. He darted through the ruins, his cloaking device flickering as it struggled to keep up with the mercenaries' superior technology. Behind him, the creature followed, using its agility to keep pace despite the pain it must have been in. The soldier's eyes flicked to the sky, scanning for an escape route. That's when he saw it, an old, abandoned spaceship, half buried beneath debris. Its hull rusted and battered. It was their only hope. If they could get to the ship, they could escape the planet and leave the mercenaries behind. But there was no time to waste. The mercenaries were close, and they were getting closer with every passing second. The soldier knew they had to make a break for it. He gestured for the creature to follow him, and they sprinted toward the ship, weaving in and out of the ruins as the sound of enemy footsteps echoed behind them. They'd reached the spaceship just as the mercenaries began to fire. The soldier dove into the cockpit, activating the ship's systems. The ship sputtered, its engines barely responding, but it was enough. The creature leaped into the cargo bay, using its enhanced agility to avoid the blast of energy weapons aimed at it. "Hold on," the soldier yelled, his hands flying over the control panel as he tried to bring the ship to life. He could feel the sweat beading on his forehead, his heart hammering in his chest as the ship's engines roared to life with a sputter. The mercenaries were closing in, their weapons blazing. The soldier could feel the heat of the energy blasts as they skimmed past the ship, narrowly missing it. His pulse quickened, but he didn't let panic set in. He had trained for moments like this. He engaged the thrusters, launching the ship into the air with a powerful burst. But they weren't out of danger yet. The mercenaries fired relentlessly, their energy blasts hitting the ship's shields, causing the entire craft to shake. The soldier gritted his teeth, pushing the ship forward with all his strength. He had to get them out of there. It wasn't long before one of the enemy ships followed them into the air, its engines screeching as it closed the distance between them. The soldier knew they couldn't outrun them. It was time to fight. "Prepare for battle," the soldier muttered, his hands gripping the control panel tightly as he prepared to engage the enemy. The creature stood beside him, its eyes glowing with a strange intensity. It seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. It was ready. As the mercenary ship closed in, the soldier activated the ship's weapon systems, firing a barrage of laser blasts at the pursuing enemy. The shots were precise, but the mercenary ship was fast, darting through the air with incredible agility. For a moment, it seemed like they were locked in a deadly dance, each side trying to outmaneuver the other. The soldier gritted his teeth, knowing that this was their only chance. If they didn't take out the mercenary ship now, they would be dead. With a swift move, the soldier adjusted the ship's trajectory, diving toward the surface of the planet. The mercenary ship followed, but the soldier was prepared. He activated the ship's cloaking device once more, disappearing from view. The mercenary ship flew past them, its sensors failing to detect the cloaked ship. The soldier breathed a sigh of relief, but there was no time to celebrate. They were still on the run, and the danger wasn't over. The ship's systems were failing, and the creature's injury was growing worse. The soldier's heart raced as he glanced at the creature, its body sagging in pain. He couldn't afford to lose it now, not after everything they had been through. With a fierce determination, the soldier set a course for the nearest spaceport. It wasn't much, but it was a chance to get the creature to safety. He knew he would do whatever it took to keep it alive, to protect the bond they had formed. As the ship sped toward the spaceport, the soldier could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. They were running out of time. The mercenaries wouldn't give up, and the creature's injury was severe. But there was one thing the soldier knew for certain: he wouldn't stop fighting. No matter the odds, no matter the cost, he would get them both to safety. The bond between them had grown stronger than ever, and together they were unstoppable. The stakes had never been higher, and the battle for survival was just beginning. The air was thick with tension as the soldier and the creature approached the old, desolate facility. It was a place where history had been forgotten, and only the remnants of past wars remained. The structure loomed in the distance, its jagged silhouette cutting against the darkening sky. This was their final stand. There was nowhere else to run, no more tricks or escape routes left. They were cornered, and the mercenaries were closing in fast. The soldier's breath was steady, but his mind raced. He had known this day would come, the day when they would face the mercenaries head-on, with no more hope of evading them. The cloaking devices, the drones, and the weapons had all served their purpose. But now, they were out of options. It would be a fight to the death. Behind him, the creature moved silently, its eyes glowing with a strange mix of fear and determination. It had grown stronger since they had first met, its intelligence and abilities evolving at an astonishing rate. The bond between them was undeniable now. The creature wasn't just a survivor. It was a warrior, ready to fight to the end to protect the human who had saved it. The soldier glanced at the creature. Its once fragile form was now filled with a fierce power, a power that seemed to emanate from deep within. He knew that this wasn't just a creature anymore. It was a partner, a comrade in arms. They had both changed through this journey. They were no longer just a human and an alien. They were a team, united by trust and necessity. The mercenaries had tracked them here, led by an eye-controlled commander who had no mercy. The soldier had heard rumors of this commander, an entity with no compassion, only cold, calculated efficiency. It was a machine in every sense of the word, and it would stop at nothing to eliminate its target. The soldier knew that if they were going to survive this final encounter, they would need more than just their skills and technology. They would need each other. The sky above darkened further, and a storm began to brew, the wind howling like a living creature. The soldier activated his last-ditch weapon, a massive energy cannon hidden beneath the rubble of the facility. The weapon was a last resort, something he had been saving for a moment like this. The energy cannon had the potential to obliterate an entire fleet, but it was unstable and unpredictable. It required immense power to operate, and the only thing capable of providing that power was the creature itself. The soldier turned to the creature, his voice quiet but resolute. "We have to make this work. I need you to give everything you've got." The creature's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment it seemed to hesitate. Then, slowly, it nodded. The bond between them was clear. The creature understood that this was the only way out. It would give everything to protect the soldier, just as the soldier had done for it. The soldier moved quickly, setting up the cannon while the creature stood guard, its senses alert for any sign of the mercenaries. The air crackled with energy as the soldier's hands flew over the controls. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. There was no going back now. They were about to make their stand. The first mercenary ship appeared in the sky, its silhouette cutting through the storm. The soldier could hear the faint hum of its engines, growing louder with every passing second. The creature's muscles tensed, and it stepped forward, ready to fight. The soldier's fingers hovered over the trigger, but he didn't fire just yet. He had to wait for the right moment. The mercenaries landed, their boots thudding against the cracked ground. The commander's voice, cold and mechanical, echoed through the facility. "You cannot escape. Surrender now, and your death will be swift." The soldier didn't respond. He had heard this before. The AI didn't understand fear or mercy. It only understood victory. And the soldier knew that if he was going to survive, he would have to show the mercenaries something they hadn't anticipated: human determination. The creature moved into position, its body glowing with an otherworldly energy. It wasn't afraid. It wasn't a victim anymore. It was a force to be reckoned with. The battle began. The soldier fired the energy cannon, a massive blast of energy that sent shockwaves through the air. The mercenary forces were thrown back by the explosion, their armor barely holding up against the sheer power of the blast. But they weren't finished yet. The AI commander gave the order, and the mercenaries charged forward, their weapons blazing. The soldier fought back, using everything at his disposal. His high-tech weapons, his energy shields, and his wits all came into play as he held the line. But the mercenaries were relentless. For every blow he struck, they returned too. The soldier could feel the strain on his body as he fought to stay alive, but he knew he couldn't keep this up forever. They were running out of time. Then, just as the tide seemed to turn in favor of the mercenaries, the creature made its move. It unleashed a burst of energy unlike anything the soldier had ever seen, sending a wave of power crashing into the mercenary forces. The eye-controlled soldiers were thrown back, their circuits overloaded by the energy. The creature had tapped into its full potential, and for a moment, it seemed like victory was within reach. But at what cost? The creature's body trembled, its energy reserves depleting rapidly. It had given everything it had, and now it was paying the price. The soldier's heart sank as he watched the creature stagger, its energy flickering like a dying star. It had saved him. It had saved them both. But now it was too late. The creature collapsed, its glowing eyes dimming. The soldier rushed to its side, his breath ragged as he knelt beside it. "No, stay with me," he shouted, but there was no response. The battle raged around him. But in that moment, all the soldier could hear was the sound of his own heartbeat, pounding in his ears. The creature had sacrificed itself. It had given everything to protect him. And now, it was gone. Tears welled in the soldier's eyes, But he didn't have time to mourn. The mercenaries were regrouping, their forces closing in. The soldier stood, his fists clenched. He wasn't going to let the creature's sacrifice be in vain. He activated the energy cannon one last time, firing with everything he had. The blast was devastating. The mercenary forces were obliterated in an instant, their ships and soldiers reduced to smoldering wreckage. The AI commander's cold, mechanical voice was silenced, and for a moment, there was nothing but the sound of the wind. The soldier stood alone on the battlefield, his heart heavy with loss. He had won, but at a terrible cost. The creature was gone, but its sacrifice had saved him. It had been the creature's humanity, its bond with the soldier, that had made the difference, not the technology or the weapons they had used. As the storm began to clear, the soldier stood in silence, his eyes on the horizon. He had lost a friend, a partner, but he had won the battle. And in that moment, he knew that the creature's sacrifice would never be forgotten. It was a victory, but it was also a reminder of the cost of war, of the bonds that can be formed in the most unlikely of places. As the ship sailed through the void, the soldier's thoughts turned to the future. What would he find on the planet that lay ahead? Would there be more of the creature's kind? Would they welcome him, or would they see him as an enemy? There were so many unknowns, but one thing was certain. He would face whatever came next with the same determination, the same bravery, and the same heart that had carried him through the battles of the past. The creature had shown him what was possible when different beings came together. It had shown him that, despite their differences, they could all share something precious, a bond, and that bond had the power to change the galaxy. The ship's trajectory took it closer to the unknown planet, and the soldier felt a renewed sense of purpose fill his heart. There was so much more to be done. The journey wasn't over. It was only just beginning. As the planet's surface came into view, the soldier couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The planet was beautiful, a vibrant world filled with possibilities, and it was here that his journey would take its next step. The soldier knew that the creature's people, if they still existed, would be grateful for the chance to rebuild, to reclaim their place in the galaxy. He didn't know what the future held, but he was ready to face it. He would protect these creatures, just as he had protected the one he had lost. He would stand by them, fight for them, and ensure that their legacy lived on. The ship touched down on the planet's surface, and the soldier stepped out, his heart heavy with the weight of the journey ahead. But there was also a spark of hope within him, a sense of optimism that had been absent for so long. The creature had shown him what was possible, and now it was his turn to carry that message forward. The stars shone brightly above him, and the soldier looked up, feeling the weight of everything he had been through. He had lost a friend, but he had gained so much more. He had gained a purpose, a mission that would guide him through the darkest times. And as he looked into the vastness of the galaxy, he knew one thing for certain. The bond between human and alien had changed the galaxy forever. And it was only just beginning. With renewed hope in his heart, the soldier stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.